Welcome back to Wargaming World. My name's Greg. Today we're going to play a game of Chain of Command, but instead of World War II, it's World War I. So we're in Belgium. It's August the 24th, 1914. It's the day after the Battle of Mons. The British are now retreating. However, they have seen an opportunity to attack the Germans and to hold them up maybe for a few hours. So this game is taken from the Blitzkrieg supplement, and the actual scenario is going off with a bang. What the British are looking to do is to hold up the Germans and potentially blow up the railway track on the way to a station. Okay, so just for an explanation about how we play Chain of Command in World War I rather than World War II. So in 2014, the Two Fat Lardies produced an article as part of their Christmas special. Now that article was entitled Cocking Up from the Mud and the Blood. So Mud and the Blood was a game which was a World War I game which came out before Chain of Command. However, this was an article which was to look about how we might play Chain of Command in World War I. The article itself still sets itself at a platoon level, and in reality, in the article, it really looks at the World War I set from around about 1916 onwards. It thinks that 1914, really, it's lots of rifle fire, and it's going to be a struggle to do it at a platoon level. Therefore, what we're playing here is at battalion level. So each of the units is not a platoon, but rather a battalion. And I've added some additional rules to it in order so that we get some variety and some ways in which we can play this game and deliver it. Okay, so let's start with the patrol phase. Normally we'd have both sides moving on the table. However, in this situation, we're going to set up right on the board edge, and we're even going to control when and where the Germans and British can use their jump-off points, so that the Germans will start on turn one just at the end of the railway track. The British will have a number of jump-off points on the board edge, and will have an additional one in the station itself. The Germans will have a second and third jump-off point, but will only be able to use it on turns 2 and 3. Initially, at turn 1, the British will have 4 infantry battalions. They'll also have 1 mounted infantry brigade. They'll also have 1 machine gun team. As far as the Germans are concerned, they only start with 3 infantry battalions as they first come on from the railway track itself. However, as we get into turns 2 and 3, we'll roll 1d6 for the number of units that come on for the Germans. So what we're looking to try and replicate here is the fact that the British catch the Germans by surprise initially. However, we get more and more Germans adding into the game as we go. Now, if we get to turn 3, the British themselves will be able to bring on the Royal Engineers, and it's the engineers who will then try to destroy the railway track. If the British destroy the railway track and have a higher force morale, they will get a major victory. If they destroy the railway track and have a lower force morale, we will continue until the end of the turn. If at the end of that turn the Germans have a higher force morale, we will have a draw. If at any stage in any turn either of the force drops down to 0 in force morale, then the other side will be victorious. Just before we start, I thought it might be useful just to highlight the articles I'm referring to and acknowledge again this is articles from the Two Fat Lardies, so Cocking Up Through the Mud and the Blood. And in addition, I also want to mention that I'm using a map here from Mons by John Terrain, published in 1960. Now, I'm using the map so that I can highlight this canal section, and most importantly, the pictures from Chris Caves. Chris has a fantastic collection. These pictures are from the August 23rd, the actual action of Mons and the canal section in particular. So I really want to show these off, and thanks to Chris for his generosity sending them through to me. I'm sure at some point we're going to have a good conversation regarding his collection. And finally, an acknowledgement as well to Dan Morgan, and my thanks to him for his painting and detail of my own collection, which I got probably about 10 years ago now, but really still very much something that I really enjoy using, and it's a fantastic collection, so thanks to Dan. Right, now on with the game. Right, here's the tabletop for the game. So let's have a quick look round at some key features, and then we can start with turn one. Right, so from the left hand side we've got our chain of command board, and then on this left hand side we've got a watermill and a town. That's really just for show. Essentially the engagement's going to start more or less from the left hand side with this field and then moving across. So first thing to take a quick look at are what will be the jump off point for the Germans and the British. So I've marked it first of all with the German cavalry. So this is going to be the first jump off point for the Germans, and this is the only point at which they can come in on the first turn. And two, and the German reinforcements, which will be 1d6 of reinforcements, can come in from where the cavalry is here. And turn three, the support can come in from this point onwards, and the advantage to that is it's the closest point at which it can then advance to the station. The British actually have four jump off points. One is here from the station itself. Just further along we have a marker of the British cavalry. This is the point at which the British I should say, can come in on turn three with the Royal Engineers. First turn the British can either come onto the board from here or further along from this point. You can see at the bottom right and bottom left of the screen the British can enter from those 2 points onto the board. Okay, let's start by rolling the force morale. Right, that's 8 for each. And so it's first phase, first turn. It's going to be the Germans first as they advance onto the board. Okay, 5. So we've got 1 for a chain of command dice, and then we've got 1, 2, 3s and a 4. Okay, 1's no good because we only have machine guns in the reinforcements. We have 2 3s, so we can bring on 2 battalions with their junior leader, and the 4. We only have 1 senior leader for the Germans early on, so I'm going to leave him off the board to make sure that I can bring on the 3rd battalion without too much difficulty. Okay, so the Germans are on the board and advancing up the rail track. First British phase. Double phase, 1 for the chain of command dice and a 1 and a 3. Well, with the 3 and the 1, the Worcesters and the machine gun team are going to get in the game straight away. So we're going to take a shot all the way down the railway track at the Germans as they advance. Machine gun first of all, 6 dice, needing 5s. 3 hits. I've got 2 battalions, so we split the impact across the 2 battalions because they're within 4 inches. So we start with 2 dice. They're in the open, and that's no effect. Battalion behind. That's a 3, it's 1 point of shot. Some of these rifles are slightly obscured, so I'm going to say that we're going to end up with just 7 firing. And needing 5s. 4 hits. So 2 and 2 again. We'll say that the blue dice is the 2nd battalion. And we've got 1 kill in the 1st battalion, and we've got 2 points of shock in the 2nd. Is it the leader? No, it isn't. Right, so it's the end of that phase. It's the British phase. We've got a 2nd phase for the British. So I drop down by 1 dice, so I only get 4 dice now rolling for the British for this turn. So we have 2 2s and a 3. Right, so with the first 2 I brought on the Dragoon Guards, moving here on the left hand side. And with the second 2 I've brought on the Middlesex Battalion. With the 3 over here we're going to fire again with the Worcesters. I'm also going to add 2 dice to it. I should have done it actually on the last activation, where they're going to fire 5 rounds rapid. Okay, so we've got 9 dice needing 5s. Looks like we've got 3 hits there. Same again, we'll have 2 green dice will be the 1st battalion, the blue dice will be the 2nd. And another point of shock there for the 2nd battalion, nothing for the front. German phase. 2 4s, a 2 and a 3. Right, so we're going to do this. With the 3, the unit that's in the front, the battalion at the front, is going to move at the double, and the junior leader is going to take the point of shock off at the end of that move. Then the senior leader is going to come on the board, take 2 points of shock off the 2nd battalion, and then order it to move, and then we're going to roll to see if we can bring on the 3rd battalion behind it. Okay, let's start with that, moving at the double. Okay, moves 7 inches. Behind him moves, or it could be 11 inches. It has to deduct 2 for shock, so effectively it just moves right up behind them. Right, so I know it was a risk. Senior leader's on the board, so can we bring on the 3rd battalion? 1 2 3 is a no, but yes we can. Okay, over to the British. 2 for the chain of command dice, a 4 and a 2. A little ahead of myself there really, it's a 4 and 2 1s. Right, I'm going to take the 2 1s and I'm going to move this section forward. Right, and I'm going to bring on the British senior leader here. I know we have another 2 infantry battalions to try and bring on for the British, but I'm going to put the senior on here so that we can fire. So yeah, the machine gun's going to fire and the rifles too. Right, just to highlight that the mounted infantry came onto the board 9 inches from the jump off point, so that's another benefit they get, 3 inches from the jump off point here. And then in addition you also get an additional dice to your normal movement, so they can now move 3 dice as they're going to. So let's see how the movement goes. So 11 inches in total. Okay, so this is where the mounted infantry have reached, so they can get into a position now to harass the Germans once they dismount, which we'll do in the next phase if we get the right dice. Okay, on this side we've got the machine gun firing, which is 6 dice, and then we also have, well, it will be 7 dice with the rifles, but the senior leader is going to add 2 of his command initiative, so we've got 9 dice in total for the 5 round rapid. So that's 15 in total. Okay, 15 dice needing 5s. Right, 6 hits in the open, so it's going to be 3 on the 1st battalion, 3 on the 2nd. Although the 3rd battalion is within 4 inches of the 2nd, it's not within the 1st. So therefore, we're going to say green dice will be for the 1st battalion, blue dice for the 2nd. And that looks like 1 killed in the 1st battalion and in the 2nd, and an additional point of shock to the first 2 as well. Right, so 2 killed. Let's see if it's an officer. No, it isn't. German phase. Right, did 2s and 1s there. Okay, with the 3 1s, the junior leader is going to take the point of shock off the 1st battalion and then move it through into these woods. Behind it, the senior leader is going to take off a point of shock and get the 2nd battalion to move, but this way over the hedge and onto this field, and will order the 3rd battalion to fire at the British. So 2d6 and move 5 inches for the 1st battalion. The order, the 2nd battalion are the ones who are going to fire. The senior leader orders the 3rd battalion to go over the hedge. Roll for the movement first of all, removing the lowest dice, which is 1, but then again so's the other one, so it doesn't really get very far at all. So the Germans are going to fire at the British machine gun team. I've got 7 dice, so we've lost 1 for a point of shock, so needing 5s. And we've got 2 hits. It's going to be 1 on the machine gun team and 1 on the rifles behind them. Blue with the rifles, so therefore we've had somebody killed. Let's see if it's a leader. No, it isn't. Right, okay, now it's the British phase. Ooh, right, 3 4, so 2 of those are wasted because we've only got 1 senior leader, and we've got a 1, so we can use the machine gun, and yeah, 2 orders from the senior leader. So with the 1 we're going to have the machine gun fire, and then with the 4 the senior leader will order the rifles to fire and add a couple of command points into it, so we'll end up with 9 dice, I think. Okay, so machine gun, 6 dice needing 5s, and that gives us 3 hits. There's going to be 2 hits on the battalion in front and 1 behind in the open, so 3-4 is shock, 5-6 to kill. So that's 2 points of shock to the 1st battalion. 9 dice needing 5s with the rifles, and that gives us 4 as before. Green are the front battalion, and that's a casualty with each and 1 point of shock with each. Is it a leader, 1 or 2? Yes, it is. 1-2, it's a junior leader in the 1st battalion, 3-4 the junior leader of the 2nd battalion, 5-6 it's the senior. And it's the junior leader of the 2nd battalion. To him. He loses a command. Finally, it's a bad thing in terms of morale. So 3-3 I think is a -1. So the wound to the junior leader is a -1, so it takes the Germans to 7. Right, German phase. And we've got 3 to the chain of command dice, which is useful, takes it up to 4, and a 1 and a 3. I have a great deal of options here for the senior leader, which is what I'm using the 1 and the 3 for. So I'm going to order the battalion at the back to move. So that's 1 command. The battalion in the front are going to take a point of shock off, and then order this unit to move tactically. So that's the 3 commands that we have. Now it's got 4 points of shock, so that battalion at the front really is hardly going to move at all, but at least it's going to get itself some better cover. So the battalion at the back, removing the lowest dice, which is 3, it's 6 inches, so that should get over the hedge no problem and into a decent position. And then if I roll 1 dice and remove and lose 4, so they don't really move at all, but they are tactical. If we very quickly go across the board, then the chain of command situation is the Germans are on the 7, British on 8. In terms of dice, the Germans are slightly advanced in the fact that they've got 4 to the British 3. So from the left hand side we've got our British cavalry in position. They aren't dismounted, so they aren't firing as yet. However, they've got this German battalion advancing on them, so there's a danger there. In the middle we have the 2nd battalion, which has a lot of shock. It's got the senior leader with it, and also we have the original battalion, the 1st battalion, which is just in these woods. They haven't advanced a great deal along the railway line. In position waiting, they haven't done a great deal. Here is the Middlesex battalion. They came on the board but haven't done anything since. And then further along we've had quite a lot of action with the unit here in terms of the Worcesters. So the Worcesters and the senior leader are in position, firing alongside with the machine gun and holding the Germans at bay so far in the first turn. And we've got another British phase. So another waste with a 4, but we do have a 1, 2, 4 and a 5, so the chain of command dice will go up to 4 for the British. Okay, with a 2, the dragoons have now dismounted and they are tactical. They can't fire, but they are at least in what essentially is going to be hard cover. And with a 1 and a 4, as you were, it's going to be firing from the machine gun and indeed the rifles with 2 additional dice with 5 rounds rapid. Machine guns needing 5s. It's just a single hit for shock, 6 to kill. That's no effect. Rifles needing 5s. That is 4 hits. That's 4 hits now, all on the 2nd battalion. It's 4-5 for shock, 6 to kill. And no effect again. That's the German phase. 4, 2, 3 and a 2. Much better roll for the Germans. So with the 2, this battalion is going to fire at the cavalry here. With the 3, the commander of the 2nd battalion will take off 2 points of shock. The senior leader will then take off a further 2, taking it down to 0, and order that battalion to fire at the British machine gun team. And then in the woods, with the final 2, the unit will move. With movement from the woods, 2d6, 7 inches. So the Germans advancing outside the woods there. So we then have this battalion. Now it doesn't have any shock. So we have 8 dice needing 5s to hit the machine gun. Nothing. And 8 dice needing 5s over here. That's more successful. That's 4 hits. So I've measured it again. It's within 18 inches, so it needed 4s. So we've actually got 5 hits. They're tactical and also behind light cover, so it's going to be 5 is shock, 6 to kill. That's 1 kill. No, it isn't. British phase. 2 for the chain of command dice, which takes it to 6, so it's a full dice. And then we've got 2 3s and a 2. Now, the first thing I want to do with the first 3 is to bring in the Royal Scots, but I need to roll to see whether they can get on the table. So 1, 2, 3, they don't, but they do. Right, with the second 3, I'm going to see if I can bring on the last of the British battalions. And that's a no. Right, with the 2 and the 3, I'm going to fire with the Highlanders, who I've actually brought on, and the 4 mounted rifle. I'm going to fire at the battalion up there. Start with these dragoons. We've got 4 with rifles, and let's see if they can go do anything. It's 4s to hit. And we've got 3 hits, all on that battalion. So it looks like we've got 2 kills. Very effective. Is it the junior leader? Yes, it is. And what happens to him? He takes another light wound, which means he is killed. So that's another bad thing for the Germans. And a 4, I think, is going to be at least a -1. The junior leader killed is in fact a -2 when we roll a 4, so the Germans are now down to 5 in force morale. Now with the 3, we're going to fire with the Highlanders. So we'd normally have 9 dice for 9 rifles, but the junior leader is adding in 2 dice to that, so we have 11 in total, needing 5s to hit. 5 rounds rapid again, so 5s. Not very effective, just 3 hits. They are in the open though, so that's 2 killed and 1 point of shock. Well, that was a very effective phase for the British, so Germans really need to end the turn, I think, here. Need to get some reinforcements on the board. See how we go on. We've got 1 more for the chain of command dice, which takes it to 5, so not quite enough. And then a 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, we can't use the 1. I have nothing to use it with. The senior leader will take off 2. Well, the senior leader will order this unit to move back beyond the hedge, and if it can, we'll see about taking off 2 points of shock as well, just see how far they can actually move. And the 2 means this battalion will fire again at the machine gun team, and this battalion will move at the double, and the commander, because he's on a 3, will take off a point of shock. Let's do the easy one first, which is moving at the double. That unit moves 7 inches. Okay, so they've moved there. We now look at the second battalion. We need 5s with 8 dice shooting at the machine gun team, and nothing at all. Now this unit withdrawing, movement would normally be 2d6. We remove 2 inches because it's got 2 points of shock. I don't think it's going to be able to get over the hedge this turn, so we'll just say it's 2 dice -2. So it can move 4 inches. Can't effectively remove the shock from that unit because it's moved up to the hedge close to the senior leader, but he's not with them. So if that's the case, effectively I'm only using that command with the 4, so I can't really do a great deal more. So that means back to the British phase. British phase looks very healthy, so 3 2s and 2 3s. Right, using 2 2s for the senior leader, we're going to get the rifles and the machine gun to fire. With 1 of the 2 3s, I'm going to see if I can bring on another British battalion. Yes, we can. Right, this is our new battalion. They're on, and they're going to fire again with the 3, so it's with the 5 rounds rapid, firing again at that retreating German battalion. Okay, needing 5s.
And that just looks like 2 hits. Right, apologies, it was 3 hits and not 2. Let's see what the consequence. We've got 1 point of shock and 1 kill. With the 3, I'm not going to fire with the Highlanders. I'm going to actually move them at the double and then their junior leader to take off a point of shock. So 3 dice for movement. Oh, that's terrible. 4 inches. For the 2, I'm going to fire with the 4 dragoons. They need 5s to hit. And that's 1 hit. Consequence of that, it's 1 kill. Now that means that battalion's down to 3, but it's got a shock of 3, so it's not pinned as yet. Now what I didn't try, or what I didn't test by the way beforehand is, when the new British battalion fired and caused 1 casualty, I didn't test for the senior leader, and I'll need to test it again here for this 1 casualty. So let's start with the Scots when they fired. We need a 1. No, it wasn't the senior leader, so that was fine. And then just there where we've taken a casualty, it isn't the senior leader either. So back up here, we've got the rifles to fire and the machine gun team to fire with command from the senior leader. So I've got 7 dice with the rifles first of all firing at the battalion, needing 5s. And we've got 2 hits. And that is 2 points of shock. And I've got the machine gun, 6 dice, needing 5s. And that's 3 hits. And in total, that's 3 kills. Now, is that a leader? No, it isn't. Right, it's now the German phase, and they most certainly need a 5 here, or an end of turn, because they're getting whittled down to nothing. So if the Germans are going to have any chance of winning this game, this needs to be a good roll. Well, it's not an end of turn or a 5, so they can get a full chain of command dice, but it's a double phase, so at least that's useful. Right, the senior leader is going to order this unit to move, get it over the hedge if it can. It's going to reduce a point of shock off this team and order it to fire. Now the unit trying to get over the hedge, they've got 3 points of shock, so that's going to impact the better of these 2 rolls, which is a 4, so essentially they can go an inch. I think they're going to be able to get across the hedge, I think. Right, so I've got 5 shooting at the machine gun team, again needing 5s. Oh, that's 3 hits. I have 2 on the machine gun team and 1 on the rifles. The blue dice is the rifles. And so we have a point of shock on each. With the final 3, I'm going to move this unit further forward again. 7 inches. Okay, so they've moved up. Now, reduced down to 4 dice. Germans again, fingers crossed, need a 5. They've got 1, and it's another double phase. Right, the senior leader takes off a point of shock from this group, orders them to fire, and then he's going to move himself to the 2nd battalion that's just behind the hedge. 5 dice needing 5s to hit the machine gun team. And 1 hits. The impact of that. 3 is another point of shock. Right, that is the end of turn 1. And now we can see the start of turn 2. We've got another German phase. It's only 3 dice. But first of all, let's see how many German reinforcements we have. We have 1d6, so let's hope, for the German's sake, we get a high roll. 3. 3 is not bad. So with a 3, we're going to bring on, we're going to have access to, I should say, 1 Jaeger battalion, 1 standard infantry battalion, and then with this dice, we're going to have a choice of 3. 1, 2, it'll be a machine gun. 3, 4, it'll be a cavalry squadron. 5, 6, it'll be another senior leader. And so it's cavalry. Okay then, so German phase again, just 3 dice this time. 6 is useless, but a 1 and a 3 could be helpful. Okay, so with the roll I had a 6, a 3 and a 1. I can't use the 1, and therefore I'm going to bring on 1 of the units. So if you remember, I had 2 infantry regiments and 1 cavalry, and the first one I've picked out is in fact an elite unit. It's an elite Jaeger unit, and so we can set up 9 inches away from the jump off point. Unfortunately that's all I can bring on, so that's a stroke of luck for the Germans, but we're still in the British phase next. Right, British phase. Okay, 1, 2, 3 and a 4. Now, just panning across the table, the British are in a very strong position here. We've got the Germans really struggling at this end, taking a lot of casualties as they've moved up the railway track. And although the Germans are advancing in the middle, the British are holding the station, and they also have a full chain of command dice. They could end the turn, take it to turn 3, and then it means we could bring on the Royal Engineers over time and see whether they can blow the track. Right, so let's see how the British go on in this phase. Right, so with the 4, the senior leader is going to reduce the points of shock from both the machine gun team and the rifle battalion. Also going to order the rifles to fire. With a 1, the machine gun team is going to fire. With a 2, I'm going to advance the Middlesex battalion, and with a 3, I'm going to advance the Scots on moving at the double, and they'll remove a point of shock from the junior leader. So let's start with that movement. And it's a good move as well, 14 inches. That's an excellent move for the Scots. So they really are now advancing on the German battalion. See the Middlesex hop over the hedge, see how far they can go. We lose the 4 inches, so 5 inches forward. Machine gun fires the track again, down the track again, needing 5s to hit with the machine gun. And we've just got 1 battalion are in the open, so let's see the consequence of that. There's no 7 rifles firing at the same target. Again, needing 5s. Better this time with 3 hits. And 3 points of shock. Right, well, I could have ended the turn there at the end of that British phase, but I'd rather do so at the end of the German phase, just in case I get a double phase, etc, etc. So anyway, let's see how the Germans do on this roll. And they've got 1 for the chain of command dice, so that starts it up again. 1, 2 and 3. I can't really use the 1, but I'll use the 2 for the immediate regiment there to get over the hedge and continue moving. The elite Jaegers in the background there, can move those at the double, and also I'll remove a point of shock, so they can see if they can advance on the station. So the 1st battalion, we need to remove the lower of the 2 dice, so we can move 3 inches. And then the Jaeger moving 3 dice. That's a good dice for them, that's 12. Right, so we've moved both of those units. I've also the regiment nearest to us here can't be seen by the Middlesex because of the hedge that's in the way, so they can continue advance well along this field, and the Jaegers in the background are also advancing. So although it's advantage to the British at the moment, there's certainly the Germans can get close to the objective. So it's the British phase, and I am going to end the turn, so we'll end that now. So then we're going to have turn 3 with the British phase and see if we can bring on the Royal Engineers. Right, so start turn 3. In order to bring on the Engineers, I need to roll a 1, so that's the first thing that's required, and yes, we've got it. Okay, so yes, we've got a 1, but we do need to remember as well is because the senior leader's on the table, I've got to roll again to see if it actually gets on the board. So that's that. So we've got a 5, so I've got 1 for the new chain of command dice, and then 2 3s and a 4. Right, so I need a 4 5 6 to make sure the Engineers can come on, and no, they can't. Right, rather frustrating for the British there that the Royal Engineers couldn't get on the table. So I'm going to first of all move this battalion 2d6, see how close we get to the Germans there, the other side of the hedge. 7 inches. Right, well with that we've got contact, so we'll work out the melee in a moment. This unit again is going to advance only up to the hedge though, so it should be fine in its movement. 5 inches, yes it is. Yeah, the senior leader is going to order the machine gun team to move. He's going to take off a point of shock and also going to move the rifles. Okay, so we've moved the machine gun team and the rifles, and part of the reason for that is when the Royal Engineers actually do come on, eventually they'll be close enough to the rifle so they get some kind of cover, so they don't get shot at independently. Okay, so combat. Right, the British in green, we've got 9 men there, so we've got 9 dice, and we've also got another 2 for the junior leader. Germans have 4 for 4 men, 2 for the junior leader, and in addition the British moved 2d6, so they get another 2. However, we remove 1 because it also has a point of shock, which leaves 7. However, the Germans are defending like cover, so they get another 2, or another dice for every 3 that they have, so it's another 2 dice. And so, in the end, we've got 9 plays 11. British first, needing 5s and 6s. So we can see 5 there, so the 3 6s also indicate that the Germans will suffer 3 additional points of shock. Okay, so the Germans in reply. That's 1, 2, 3. 1 point of shock for the British, but that's a British victory. So in effect, with 5 casualties, that battalion is completely wiped out, and we know that one of the casualties will be the junior leader. So let's see what actually happens to him. 3 means he's knocked unconscious. The British, on the other hand, had 3 killed, so we need to see if one of them was the junior leader. No, it wasn't. Also need to do 2 bad things for the Germans. So first of all, we have what would be section wiped out, but essentially it's this battalion wiped out with a 5. I think that's a -2. So junior leader wounded on a 1. That might be nothing. Yes, that's nothing for the junior leader, but it is a -2 for the section to be wiped out. So the Germans are down to 3 on their force morale. Checking my own notes, there is that if we're down to 3 with the Germans, they're down to 3 dice. Right, now, the thing that we need to do for the Germans, first of all, is we're on turn 3. So we do get more reinforcements. So let's have a look and see how many units we get. That's 3 more. So that will be 2 more infantry units. And then I'm going to roll here. 1, 2 will get cavalry. 3, 4 will get a red dice. 5, 6 a senior leader. 1, 2, so we're going to get further cavalry. So if we remember then that from turn 2 they have another infantry and cavalry unit to come on here, and then from turn 3 there is a further 2 units for infantry and 1 cavalry. So 3 infantry and 2 cavalry to come on 2, but as we're now down to 3 dice, we're really struggling to see the Germans being able to coordinate this in any kind of way to improve their situation. So, and that's not a great roll either, because the senior leader is actually down here. So the only thing we can do, we could bring on with a 2. We could bring on another unit. So we could bring on cavalry, for example. But yeah, the only thing we can do down at the bottom is to see what we're going to do with the senior leader. In a desperate measure, with the 2, rather than bring on another unit, I'm just going to move these elite Jaeger 3d6, so they'll take on a point of shock, and see how close we can get to the station. Okay, so that's another 9 inches. So here's the Jaegers moved up towards the cemetery. Unfortunately, I think it's just a little bit too late. The leader's taken off 2 points of shock, and is going to get them to the units to fire at the Royal Scots. The senior leader is going to fire himself too, so we've got 4 dice, needing 4, 5s and 6s. And just 1 hit. In the open, going to have to hope that it hits the junior leader, perhaps. It is a kill. Is it the junior leader? No. Back to the British phase. We've got a 1, so we've got a chance to bring on these engineers. A 1, a 2 and a 4. Do the engineers come on? Need a 4, 5 and 6 to see them. Nope. Right. With a 2, this unit is going to attack the Germans here. With a 4, senior leader is just going to order these rifles to move further forward. Okay, so the Worcesters are formed up, ready for the advancing Jaegers. 1d6, so that the Scots are now engaged here with this battalion, so we've got more hand-to-hand fighting. So this is going to be a very close action. The British have got 5 men and a junior leader, which gives them 7 in total. The Germans have 3 men. They have a senior leader, and the British have also advanced. They've both got 1 point of shock, therefore there's no other deductions, so it's 7 aside. Attacking British first. And we're looking for 5s and 6s, but we've only got 2 there. And here come the Germans. And that's 2 each. Slight advantage to the British by impacting another point of shock. And we're going to have another battle too, but we need to see whether it's the leader. So first of all, is it the German leader? 1 or 2 it is. Yes, it is. And so what happens to him? 6, he takes a light wound. Is it the British leader? No, it isn't. We're going to fight again. So we've removed 2 men from the British, 1 from the Germans, but we've also got 1 wound on the senior leader, so his command does reduce. But we also need to have 1 roll for a bad thing, senior leader wounded. That's a 2. So with that 2, it is a -1, so the Germans go down to 2 in force morale. So we need to do this fight again. So the British have 3 men and a junior leader, that's 5 dice. The Germans have 2, and their senior leader is down to 2 in command, but also they have 2 points of shock, so we remove 1 dice. So in the end it's 5 plays 3. Again, looking for 5s and 6s, we'll do it all together. Right, that looks like a German victory. Right, certainly is a German victory. Slightly more complicated than that though. We need to work out both the leaders and the consequence of shock. So, the Germans lost 1, so is it the leader? No, it isn't. They've lost 2, is it the leader? No, it isn't. Both have shock, so the British have gone up from 1 to 3, the Germans from 2 to 3. So with the Germans having 2 men there, they are now pinned. The British having 3 with 2 men, they are pinned also. However, we need to also think about the consequence of losing and see what happens there. Right, the consequence of that is that the British are thrown back by 6 inches. There we go, so that's where we finish, with the British having to pull back, but they are now pinned, as are the Germans, with 3. Hesitated there just to make a key point, and I think I'm right, is that they've got, it's two men, in the sense it's an officer and a soldier in both cases, so therefore they're pinned as opposed to routing. And one point is that officers don't carry shock themselves, but the fact that they count in terms of this calculation means that neither of those units rout. The important point therefore is that in terms of both officers, they can reduce the shock of the rest of the unit in their turn. Right, very complicated, but we're now back to a German phase, but down to 2 dice because we're down to 2 in force morale. 5 for the chain of command, and it is the senior leader. Right, okay, it is the senior leader. You can only do 2 commands, and realistically the only thing he's going to do is to reduce the shock, because even if he reduced it by 1, he couldn't get people to fire because you would have to reduce it for the shock by 1 person. So anyway, all we're going to do here is to reduce the shock from 3 down to 1. British phase. Right. Another one for the chain of command dice, takes it up to 3. We've got 2 4s and a 1. Do the Royal Engineers appear? Yes, they do.
Better late than never. In from this jump off point, we've got our Royal Engineers. They've moved up to the track, and when they're activated next, they can see whether they can blow this up and close off this game.
4, senior leader has put the machine gun team and the Worcesters on Overwatch, and then moved himself just slightly behind the wagon closer to the team. And that means it's the German phase with 2 dice. Unbelievably, it's a double phase, down to 1 dice. And it's a 5 to go further forward with chain of command to 3 points to add a bit of insult to injury. British phase. It's a double phase and a 1 2 3. Right, so with the 1, the Royal Engineers are set to work. So all we're trying to do here is to damage the railway track. So to do so, we need to roll and get to 6 in total. After that, on the next activation, once we've got 6, they can roll, and we'll see whether that detonation is appropriate. So let's see how far they get in their work. And with a 4, it's past halfway. Okay, with a 2, I've got the dragoons to mount up. I'm going to move these Highlanders at the double. Okay, Highlanders moving 9 inches. British second phase with 4 dice. We've got a 4, a 2, 1 for the chain of command dice. That takes it up to 3, and a 6. With a 2, the Highlanders are going to move again, and with a 4, the senior leader is going to activate the Royal Engineers. I'll look and see if the engineers can complete their work. Yes, they can. So that takes us up to 6. So it's ready to be detonated next time the Royal Engineers are activated. With 2, the Highlanders are going to move again. They're going to move at the double, and they're going to move a substantial amount. So they're going to go here 15 inches. Right, so they're close enough for combat, so we need to work out the numbers to see whether the Highlanders, who are aggressive fighters, will in fact have 4 times the amount of dice than the Germans. Not bad for the Germans. So just working that through. 9 men for the British aggressive fighters. You get an additional of 1. 2 points for the junior leader. The Germans only have 1 man. They get 2 for the command of the senior leader. However, the British moved 3d6, so they get another 3, and for each of the 3 that they've got, they get an additional 2 because they're defending light cover. So, with all that added up, we've got 8 for the Germans and 12 for the British. Right, 5s and 6s. So you see some there. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think. Plenty of casualties there, though. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Right, so 5 casualties caused by the British. Obviously, the battalion will be wiped out, and it is the senior leader. Let's see what happens to him. And he's killed. 4 casualties. Is that the junior leader? Yes, it is. And what happened to the junior leader for the British? He is knocked unconscious. A bad thing for the British. Which is junior leader wounded on a 1, and with that the game is over. The Germans down to 0, with the senior leader killed and with the battalion wiped out, and the British remain there on 8. So in the background we also hear an explosion of the railway track with the Royal Engineers completing their job, and that turns into a decisive British victory on the 24th of August 1914. Well, as the sun begins to set on the 24th of August, we see a British victory, just giving the Germans a bit of a bloody nose, and delaying their advance after their victory at Mons. We'll see the British withdraw again as the German reinforcements inevitably will come into this area and occupy it. So I think it's been a good game. I really enjoyed playing that, and hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you've got any thoughts, then please put some comments on the YouTube channel, and any other suggestions you might have about how we might do another World War I chain of command game. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. If you are not yet a YouTube subscriber, then please just join and subscribe. In addition, if you add the notification, then you'll get the information that's coming through every week with regards to the new videos. Also, at the end of this video, you'll see that there are a number of different playlists, so click on that and you can see all of the other different games, mainly World War II, but there are 1 or 2 World War I videos as well as other things like painting, buildings, etc, etc, as well as a number of interviews that we've done with other wargamers, which were really terrific. In addition, you can also follow me on Instagram on Wargaming World, and there's a couple of Facebook groups too. We've got Chain of Command France 1940 and Chain of Command World War I. So if you want to join any of those groups, then that would be great and help to build the channel. So, just finally, just to say thanks very much. It's been a really good game, really enjoyed it, and I hope you've enjoyed it too. And if there's anything else you want to do or add, just please just put some comments on the YouTube channel, and we'll catch you next time.